Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited for this episode today. Before we dive in and introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this show. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Epictetus. Our guest today, co-host of 30 Days of Thought, the Culture Matters podcast, the one and only Paul Lucido, Andrew Berman. We've been going on this journey, life lesson, labels, mom. Now we're at another excerpt. Andrew, take it away.
All right, here we are. Carpe Diem. Gonna pull this quote that you have here, ending the section. Success does not show up; it is the process of your decision. Listen. Carpe Diem. Seize the day. This something that means a lot to me. I'm sure, based on what you've shared, Jay, and based on Paul, what we've shared together. I think actually it has some significance. This word, this Latin term, to us, to me, it basically means make today your bitch. I mean that to me, and ironically, not for today, but tomorrow, for tomorrow. You control your today, and making the most out of today so you can have the tomorrow that you want. So that's me kicking it off. Want to share anything on that, gents?
What do you mean by for today, for tomorrow?
Like, make the decisions you're making today, the way you seize the day today, and how you embrace today is going to set your future self. Right? So the decisions that you're making today, the good choices, bad choices, the way you embrace the day, the way you decide to get out there and enjoy the sunlight, or tackle that project, or make sure that you're doing the things that you know you should be doing on today, is how you have a better tomorrow.
I'm reminded of that Simpson episode of Future. Homer drinks like a bunch of mayonnaise or something. He said, "This is not going to be good for future Homer."
But your day, that day, at that moment, yeah, it is, it's seizing the day as you wish. So careful how you carpe diem, uh because it will impact your future day.
I do agree with that. I mean, when you think about Carpe Diem, just for the listeners, so it's about, taking advantage of opportunities as they present themselves, to you. And then there's a sort of an adage: Carpe Diem, seize the day, gather your rosebuds as you may or ye may. And the analogy I remember, Andrew, you and I talked about, one of them was, rosebuds bloom and then rosebuds, fade away. And so what that tells you is you have to grab the opportunity, seize the moment as the moment presents itself. And my take on it is, you cannot spend too much time thinking about the future to the point where you lose being in the very moment and seizing that very moment, which in fact can affect that future going forward. It's kind of like, you had mentioned in a last episode that we did, because I re-listened to that, is it's a series of micro decisions, right? Little decisions that you make, and you were kind of alluding to that right now. And I like that analogy. You're making decisions as you go along, but you're also trying to embrace the here and now, what's being presented to you, and make the most of it. And I feel like that's a big part of it. We're kind of doing that. I believe like what we're doing literally right in this moment. So we're seizing this day, we're making the most of it. We're taking advantage of an opportunity, the opportunity to interact with one another, to share information with listeners. But yeah, the tricky part of Carpe Diem is when you're not in the mood for it. When you wake up and you don't feel like you're ready to tackle the day. But as the day, what's the word? reveals itself or begins to lay itself forward in front of you, then you start to seize that day, seize those moments, and recognize and identify the opportunities as they're presented to you and make the most of them. So that's just one little sort of spin on what I think about Carpe Diem.
What
Jay?
about the piece of so I have first similar to Andrew, there's right now and then there's today. But what how about the conscious unconscious piece? Because I've had this thought around the difference is, you know, you hear those people that say to program one's subconscious.
Yes.
Well, I think the subconscious and the unconscious get confused a lot. Like so if I tell myself something enough, I might actually believe it, but that doesn't necessarily make it true.
That's a
Like
conditioning.
yeah, it can create the difference between reality and my subjective view of reality. And I'm trying to tap into some of that here at the end. I wanted your thoughts on that though.
So let me make sure I'm
Oh, like
right.
here's an example because I wrote this down. Right now, right? Don't procrastinate. So Ben Franklin said, procrastination is the art of living in yesterday, avoiding today, and destroying tomorrow. So how do we actually procrastinate? Part of what we do is we rationalize. So I'm not seizing the moment. It's like the moment there's something I need to do right after this, for example. I can come off the high of this intentionality and rationalize not doing what I need to do next that I said to myself earlier I would get done because of how well this goes. Like this goes really well.
Mhm.
So like I'm leaving this medium in tight, like in a sense of euphoria up, and there's something else that I have to do that the obligation to do it creates anxiety. And I'm unable to contend with that anxiety. So I rationalize, look what I did this morning. Got up early, did a podcast, did an interview, did another monologue, was interviewed, crushed it with Andrew and Paul. Ah, let me take a break. I've negated the seizing as a consequence of rationalizing, and it's actually a highest highs that can help me do it. Not just the lowest lows, but the highest highs. Like,
Yeah, because you feel
so what do you,
accomplished.
I've
Yeah.
accomplished something. So now I'm
Mhm.
like, you know, so the role that the role that the how we view the conscious mind and a subconscious programming and our unconscious, I think, has a relationship with are we actually season day? Because we can go into the weeds. I want to go into the weeds of like, you know, there's the quarter and the month and the minute and all that stuff. We can talk it
Mhm.
practically for the audience, but what are your guys' thoughts on that role of rationalization and procrastination?
Mhm. Let me chew on that for a minute. Andrew, why don't you chime in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, so listen, procrastination is has been you know, in my life has been a cancer. Like I look at I mean, there are over the course of these years, I have countless notebooks of things that I procrastinated on, you know, ideas that were that I never executed on, just because I didn't seize the day. I overanalyzed. You know, I kind of, I did not take action. And to me, Carpe Diem is about taking action. It's about you know, executing, and making those micro decisions to take action on your future self, so you can see your future self. Uh, Procrastination, um, you know, kind of is like the anti seize the day. You know, like like procrastination and seize the day, are like the conflict in conflict with between each other. um you know, and I, you know, I'm trying to, I'm as I see, Jay, you posted your word of the year for next year. I've been contemplating mine, and I continuously try to become better at executing and better at seizing the day. And man, I'm like if I look at it's interesting. So Paul, I looked at our Carpe Diem that we did. Was it so 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 years ago? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, and I was significantly better at that moment than I was, 5 years before or a year before at executing. I am today at like what I feel is like a masterful level of executing and seizing the day. Like my day is my bitch in a way that it never has been before. And I, and it's partially learning to shed away the procrastination, stop actually thinking about about things that happened yesterday, worrying about things that could happen in the future, and focusing on what I could do today to make the best today so I could have the best tomorrow.
Well, yeah, you said that very, very well. And I agree with pretty much everything in the direction you're going. The thing I don't want us to miss out on is, so clearly procrastination is the antithesis of seizing the day. We get that part, right? I understand it. And to me, procrastination is just behavioral, meaning it's habitual. So you got to find a way to break the habit of procrastination. To what the reasons are that hold you back. Fear could keep you in a procrastination mode. The fear of moving forward, the fear of the result if you do take action. All these things play into perhaps why we procrastinate. Just to be clear, for this discussion, I was very, very a master practitioner of procrastination. That was one I had to break too, Andrew. Very difficult for me. Yesterday was a good example of a Carpe Diem day. I, at work, one project, as I was completing projects, I was in a groove, and actually counterintuitive to Jay's point, as I was completing projects, I was ready to dive into the next one because I had momentum. And that momentum carried me through the day. It was a really good day. I was telling my wife it was a great productive day. We came up with the national marketing campaign for PRMG for 2025. And so that was really good. I got Paul Roso's buy-in. So I was feeling pretty high. I had some dopamine kicking in pretty good there. But there's another piece to this that I don't want us to miss on. Carpe diem means you don't let the moment, there are so many fleeting moments. And if they just keep passing you by and passing you by, you're never present. You're not embracing those moments. It's not just about a business decision to do more every single day. It's not what it's saying. It's not saying, because you have to find a way to take your breaks too. It's not just about do. That's life. You have to now, what we're missing is the stopping to smell the roses.
If you just do, you'll end up do.
Yeah. And then what did that guy, what was that one philosopher, or what was the guy you spoke about the other day? Rich man said when he dies, what did he regret? He regret not working more or something. He should have worked more. I forget the quote.
I think, Jacob Fugger. Yeah.
Thank you. And my point is, while I have appreciation for people that are super driven, it's a lot easier being on the other side and just going, wow, that guy's really, or she's really, really driven. How impressive is that? But then I wonder, what about the rest of their life? Do they have balance in their life? Are they actually taking the moments to celebrate? Are they taking moments for themselves? Are they pausing to just, metaphorically speaking, taking a look, smelling the roses, embracing the day in of itself?
Are you making the
we're not
argument
just
that
machines.
Context is important? Because if
I
I
think it's a
seize
little
the
both.
day in one
Right.
context, it can create contradictions in the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't be in multiple places at the same time. So
Okay.
now we're talking about value.
Your values, yeah, like at an individual level. Like what do you value the most? Is it working and and I think it's more like seizing the day for whatever you want yourself to be. Like, so seizing the day today means, having, going to the gym, doing a little bit of work, doing this great podcast, and then spending time with my family. Like to me, that's my seize the day. That's how I'm seizing the day, because I listen, there's a balance, and it all needs to it all driven by my values of what I view success as. And yes, there's financial success. Yes, there's success in my career. But family success is the
Mhm.
most important to me. I mean, without that, I mean, that drives a lot of what I do, and even the business success and financial success, has is driven by that.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's good. By the way, I was going to ask you,
I
Andrew, is that your summer body that I see you're working on right now?
That's great. Oh, jeez. That
Little micro
actually,
decisions.
yeah, that's funny. That aged well. Actually, I'm probably, if I look at myself
Ah,
right now compared to them, I'm in a considerably better shape than I am that
I've
was then
used
back
something
then.
that might be helpful is I've started doing push-ups before each of these podcasts
Oh wow.
because I'm right. So there's if it it's an anchor. It's like, all right, before I do a podcast, I'm going to do push-ups. So whether that's 1 or 10 or 20, and the thing
Yeah.
with the consistency of doing push-ups, you actually get easier as you go. So you could do more in a set as you go. But if I do 1,000 podcasts in 2025, I'm doing somewhere between 1,000 and 50,000, 100,000 push-ups. If I am able to keep that. So like the role of anchors for me, right? So the anchor is
That's great.
I'm doing the podcast. I got to hit that. Well, now I'm adding this other behavior habit
Mhm.
that becomes a part of my identity that could have fruit,
So
an
just
outcome that I desire. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to me, actually, I'm just thinking about, like, at the level that you are podcasting and creating, content between your interviews, your monologues that you're doing. I'm like, okay, what could I do in my life that I do as much in, like, bathroom? So like every time I have to go to the bathroom, if I did push-ups, that would almost be able to equal the pace
We're
of
just going to be all chest, no legs, by the way. So
yes.
forget squats. It's like,
No,
yeah,
but
that could, it just,
well, I mean,
sorry.
listen, I think, I mean, so physically that is a great thing, for you. I mean, a push up is like such a great exercise. Obviously not necessarily for your legs, but the other thing is just mentally preparing you, getting your head ready, putting your head in that space,
Mhm.
for that. Like, so you're sectioning off whatever you were doing before and getting yourself pumped up, for that. So whatever those push-ups, whether you're doing 5 or 50, that's
I'm
a
at
great
75 for the day already.
oh,
That's
So,
good.
and the goal is 100 every day, but because I added this behavior to this anchor, I could very well easily go beyond the concept of what I thought I was capable of 100 a day. The 100 a day came because, doing less with the trainer, not going to the gym. I value money and power more than I do health at this season. So I'm not going to the gym. And but what can I do? Well, I can do push-ups
yeah.
because the time that I'm putting into these other things contextually that are more important to me, based on planning, conversation. That's when I got some other things I want to throw at you guys. But the push-ups, the 100 a day came about. It's like, well, how am I going to accomplish that? I was failing at that goal. I wasn't even doing 100 push-ups. I ended up doing like 40 a day. Well, it's like maybe I should just do them before meetings. And then, oh, it doesn't just have to be podcast. I have all sorts of meetings. Maybe I could just do push-ups before those meetings. Before you know it, I'm just going to be a chest. So maybe this is helping somebody recognize something they can do to do more than they think they could do.
Right.
Because the way
Yeah.
that our brain rationalizes everything so that we can maintain homeostasis and not be depressed, that right, not swing between depression and euphoria, we need to constantly, as human beings, I think, constantly convince ourselves that, we know what's going on. We think we know what's next. We're enough, blah, blah, blah. Like we do that all day long just to stay sane as human beings. But
It's
what that ends up
rationalizing.
doing, yeah, that ends up limiting our capacity to outperform our current concept of self. And so this idea of the carpe diem is like breaking this down by the day, by the quarter, which is 3 months in a quarter, each month, 4 weeks in a month, each week, 160 out or 7 days in a week, 24 hours in a day, or 24 hours. Yeah, 24 hours. And then each hour, right? Um, you can even, I would think, sleep hours. If you know how many hours you sleep that you need. All right, well, I'm taking a lecture right now, a lecture series, The Greatest Leaders in History on the Peterson Academy. And I'm on Marshall, this guy Marshall, and it was talked about Churchill and Margaret Thatcher both only needed 4 hours of sleep. So like, 20 hours then would be their block, not 24. We're all built differently. Some might be 16. Now, of course, if somebody's listening, they're like, "Oh no, I need 10 hours sleep." All right, so you have 14. Well, what are you doing with that 14? Maybe you could outperform somebody that only needs 4 because they spend 12 hours a day on methamphetamine. So it's what we do with those hours, is my point, right? So the
Yeah,
the hour become or the day becomes the blocks of the hours of the day. How many do you sleep and what are you doing with those hours? And then you could break it down, reduce it even more into the ridiculous, into the hour is 60 minutes. So how
Yeah.
many blocks of minutes do you need to accomplish tasks? Do you really need 15 minutes to go to the bathroom? What are you doing?
Why
Like,
aren't you wearing a diaper?
now
so
we're getting practical. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, we all have 168 hours a week. That's what given. Like there's no, you can't create more than that. But what are you doing with that 168 hours? Why are you not wearing Depends to go to the bathroom? It's such a waste of time. You could be, at the same time you're working, listening to a podcast, taking a meeting, and actually on a treadmill going to the bathroom. I mean, this is productivity hacking at its finest. But no, listen, I think it is actually it is about maximizing your time. I'm taking a little bit to an extreme there. But like there's this positive impact that happens when you do what you're doing, actually, where you're preparing for your podcast, you're mentally getting yourself ready, you're getting your blood flowing, which helps your brain mentally prepare for this podcast, put you in a place. So it works great. If
And
you
I want to be clear because I want this to go into I said something earlier that I'm not doing the exercise with trainers or any of that. And so I made that decision has come on the other side of planning, deducing, figuring things out. That doesn't mean that I've made the right decision. There's room for error. There's probability of error. In the in between of the planning that I've done, the decisions that have come as a consequence of that, the absence of, because there hasn't been a lot of conversation outside of myself around that, auditing, relationships, advisors, mentors, friends, peers, client partners. I'm making a value judgment based on my own concept of, right, wrong, valuable, not valuable. But there has been thought through it. It's like I value this more, and this is what I think about what I'm doing, and a hand like part a handicap or an in between. It's like, well, I'll do push-ups, so it's something, but it's not as much as it could be. And what
right,
could it be? And that's constantly could be explored and refined and perfected, and as opposed to just being dogmatic, like, oh yeah, I know, I don't have. I think that's actually a value statement. I don't value, not I don't have time. I don't have time. No, I don't
false
value. Like in
excuse.
the
Yeah.
list of things that I value, it's number 1 or number 10 or number 100 or number 3. Everything that we do with our time is on a list of 1 to infinity. It's a value conversation. And so I want to go in that direction because I have some thoughts on that. where planning comes in and self-awareness and, group, but I'm not close to the idea that actually, and this is why having advisors, in this case, a trainer, right? Or a nutrition, like people around that are watching one's health. If I get enough text every couple days, Michael might be listening to this right now. He's coming after me. Like, what are you doing, Jay? We get that workout in. I don't care when it's going to be. Like, that's great. I need to be open to being challenged, wrong, Anyway, I'll digress, but I wanted to go in that direction. I'm doing something, but could I do more? Of course, because I don't know what I'm capable of.
That's a good point.
And my value judgments change based on information, new information, reflection on old information. And it's up to, I'm not doing this alone. Like, we have a conversation. It's like, Jay, what about this? What about that? What about that? What about that? What is going on? Right? So
Well, you
I
said it
think,
before, seasons. And I'm sorry to cut you off there, Paul, but
no,
I'll just be quick with this point. Seasons. It's all about seasons. Like I'm like if you walk around in February, with flip flops, shorts, and the tank top, that's not appropriate. It's not the right season. The right season, actually, in your season right now is focusing on power and wealth building. But whatever it is, it's the right now, being focused on doing an hour of personal training, is not actually the focused hour or
but
2 hours.
here's the
Whatever.
tie-in. What I'm saying is just a rationalization,
I get that.
right? Like, because like
Yeah, I get the
the seasonal,
rationalization piece.
that's like all. Well, this is what we do. We rationalize our decisions, and they're imperfect, and we need each other to course correct, or we benefit from each other.
You could be influenced, is what you're basically saying. The thing I was going to add, and because this can go in so many directions, and I have mixed opinions about. You could look at it from so many different ways. I like Andrew's analogy about the seasons. That was I saw where you were going with that. I think interest is the one that's being left out of this. A lot of this has to do where your interests lie, where your proclivities lie, and what you're willing to sacrifice some time over here for some time over here. Andrew said it. There's only 24 hours in a day. So your point is, don't say I don't have time. You have time. You just need to decide where you're going to use your time. And you're talking about prioritizing, triaging. This is more important than this. I'm going to spend so much time here, so much time there. I talked to Kevin Peranio a lot about, he likes to compress time. He believes in compressing time. That's why he believes in technology. That's why he, wears his, I don't know what you call it, but it tracks his sleep. He knows how to grab so much sleep, and that's fine. And you could live your life that way, but he chose to do it. That's his choice. So a lot of this is based on the choices you make. It goes back to the choices. I choose to do this podcast this morning. Now we've done 4 together. This is our 4th one. Next one will be 5. And you'll look back and go, wow, look what we did. But we made the choice to do it. I could have chose to say, you know what, I don't want to do this today. I have other things that need attention. And that's the other thing too. What might drive your choices is what needs your immediate attention now. So, discipline plays into it. Can you discipline yourself to stay focused on those 100 push-ups? Or do you say, hey, look, I didn't do 100, but I got 40 in, which is, by the way, not bad. I got 40 in today, and at least I'm moving in that direction. So I think it's all based on choices. It's based on what you need to do in that moment, which speaks to Andrew's seasons. What season am I in? And
How about this?
And your interest, brother. How interested are you in putting valuable time into something just because I'm curious to see what the outcome might be. You never know. And that's a good point too. Anyway,
What is interest in the sense that
interest is what's always driven me in my entire life. That's why I said that. I did what I was interested in. When I'm interested in something, I will make time for it. If I've got a little pet project in my brain, I will find time to cut into my day to put a little thought into that. I do that all the time. That's how I've lived my whole life. So nobody is able to stop me from what I'm interested in, unless I just physically can't do it. But I'm a big, I will tell you, interest is a big part of it. But you doing these podcasts, and look at what you've grown yourself into, which is remarkable, I might say, is all predicated on your interest and curiosity, which, you know, sometimes unbridled curiosity is a good thing. I really believe that. I know curiosity killed the cat. I've said that 1,000 times in other podcasts, but I think curiosity is what builds us into who we are.
but the
Leads
cat
to the
must have
next
been living in
experience.
North Korea.
Wait, say again?
True.
What the
Like
hell did you
underneath
say?
that adage is like yeah, like the question I have, where was the cat living? Because because you know the governance structures, the culture dictates.
Yeah.
Like curiosity killed the cat who lives in North Korea. Curiosity,
Yeah.
you know, curiosity. You know, maybe the cat is Christ. Maybe this is they're the same thing. Be willing to die for your convictions, for truth with a capital T. I wrote this down, like time is infinite because it has a relationship with choice. Like if I'm gonna say, okay, we're gonna have to agree on an assumption here that this is the life we live. Like this is our life, and it's gonna end as far as we, quote unquote, know.
Yeah. So
No,
that's
as
not
it,
infinite. Well, our time is not infinite.
well, yeah, yeah. So that let's
Yeah.
say that it does, right? Um, so there's a it, but what we do is there's potential, like what we choose to do, what we don't do, that's infinite. There's an infinite there's an infinite amount of choices within that finite space time. The choice transcends
That's right.
space time. It's potential. Now, but this is the thing I want to throw in here. But I think the choices have a or what if choice has a finite relationship with our environment, our education, our enthusiasm? Like the world, right? Because that's where learning comes in and kind of our environment, our physical environment, and the information that has flowed through us has a relationship with our choice.
Uh, Absolutely, it does. I mean, how could you? I do believe that this is so interesting, this conversation, because it's all about seizing the day, but what it's turning into is it's turning into choice, it's turning into free will, it's turning into a
Oh,
lot of different.
what we're doing right now is the quote. We're embodying the philosophy.
Yeah, but you bring up, okay, so I would just want to add a couple just very minor points here. So if you're into physics and you're into particle physics, quantum theory, space and time, all that stuff, which is a choice that I chose to indulge in myself into, to learn about. Everything is moving through time, is finite to a degree. Our lifetimes are finite. So now if we know our lifetimes are finite, we know that things bloom and they decay. Back to the rosebud theme, it blooms and it decays. So it's got a period of time it exists. What are you doing with that time? How are you spending that time? That's what everything you're saying. I'm just simplifying it a little bit. Everything you're saying has to do with how are you spending the time while you're here? Are you embracing the moments? Regardless of what those moments are you really truly there? Are you present? Are you living your life to its fullest? Or are you squandering it away? And so the reality of it is, when you come to deal with mortality and you start to think about the fact that there's only so much time you have, ideally you want to make the most of it, and you want to have these amazing moments that you can have, you build great memories on, and you learn from your memories, right? What was the quote, Jay? You said it. It was in your interview with your mother. And forgive me, but I love the quote. It had something to do with the past dictates the present, kind of where you're going now. In other words, you learn from your history. You use your history.
Maybe it was Kierkegaard. Life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards.
That's it. And
yeah, I like
so
that quote.
Yeah, that's it. That's the quote. And so to me, everything you're saying all has to do with making the most of the time that you do have, not squandering it off. And yeah, you can dice it and slice it in many, many ways.
I wonder,
Go
oh
ahead,
my
Jay.
God. Okay, so I wonder if bad guys are present. It's the absence of presence that leads to the distortion of reality that undermines the conscience. It's like, was Adolf Hitler present? Or was Stalin present? And what is presence? Is it like,
in their own mind?
I'm here with you. Like if I'm with you, I'm listening to you. Because we can listen to each other with more than with just our, like, I know you're listening to me, right? Like there's like a sacrifice going on when we're really listening to other people.
That's good.
So, hey,
That's
listen,
Like there's a presence there. It's because I could have a heart attack right now, and I just gave you my last 30 seconds. For what? What the hell did that get me?
by the way, I think Hitler seized the day. His value structures were different, but he seized the day. I mean, like he was the baddest ass dictator ever. There was no actually ruler of a world ruler that killed as many people. I believe so. And had so much impact on the world as that motherfucker. So he sees the day better than us all. His values was just very different.
Well, I might have to write a different excerpt called, seize the night or something, lurk, because there are, that's me imposing a moral, ethical system, right?
I got one for
Yeah.
you. He sees the dark companion.
Oh, yeah. For anyone that actually reads this book, keep going. Well, Angela, what do you mean by that?
I mean, it's he was
before we have to invite Kanye on here to like complete this conversation.
I know I mean,
No.
he was effective. I mean, I can't say that I've studied his life, but he's had such great impact on the values that he had. His values are vastly different than my values, but he was the most accomplished dictator. He was the most accomplished, world taker over, world conqueror. And but his just values were just different. I'm sure, he sees the day and he made all the decisions at that moment in his life that were going to put him in the position to take over countries and to kill as many Jews as possible.
Well, I mean, think so. Look, to your point and to Jay's point, back to the idea that you could be a successful criminal. You could be successful at pretty much anything if you do what's required. You take the certain course of action to get to where you need to get to. You're disciplined to stick with the program. You're seizing every moment. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear, Andrew. Now we're getting into, more morals and values. I mean, I I don't know. I just feel like, for me, if you guys want to apply this toward business
Well, this is a
or
important
to your
conversation,
life.
I think, because I don't there could be a relationship between morals and values and reality, like the
Mhm.
reality that we share with others. Because you have somebody like the dictator we just mentioned. Uh it's as if they spun out of the reality that the whole world accepted as how we're going to function. Like there's all these
Mhm.
different countries with their own agendas, their own, just like people. We have our own interests, like Paul says, our own um yeah, like subjective layer of value on top of whatever reality is that we're giving and taking. We're cooperating with other people. And if we go too far out of cooperating, our own neighbors compete against us, like meaning we're putting you in prison. They eat us. We get eaten by the group because the group, in a sense, is a reflection or a reflector, reflective mechanism of our individuality. We're the individual in the group, and it's a feedback loop. And the group helps us orient in, like, are we doing the right thing? Or are we doing the wrong thing? There's this relationship with others. So like where I'm going with this is like a dictator like that. They, you know, they're in a different reality to the generally accepted reality. And I think
Mhm.
a consequence of that would be the alienation, the inevitability of war, the and so there's, maybe there's a relationship with morals and reality,
I think you hit on something. I mean,
or
look,
the reality that we could all sustain, t- so that we don't erase ourselves from this reality. Like, right? Because if anything was to go, and you play that game all the way out, we'd end up all just killing each other.
yeah, you got to cohabitate is a big part of what you're saying. In order to cohabitate, you know, do we all have to be absolutely like-minded to cohabitate? In a micro structure, you might have to, like, working in an organization or something like that. There's a certain mindset. We all are looking for people that kind of think this way, move in this direction. It's back to cultural blog and all that stuff. But in a whole ecosystem, a society, you're right. People get cast aside if they don't fit in. So we're all trying to fit in, but I'll tell you what's interesting. We're also all trying so desperately to influence people to our way of thinking, or at least understanding where we're coming from. We're doing it right here and now, right in this moment. We're sharing our thoughts, looking for brethrens, brethren, that understand and speak the same language. And yeah, I get that. Yeah, I know, totally. I agree with that. But I think we're also trying to raise our consciousness a little bit, our level of understanding. And that comes through trial by fire, through
Yeah.
education, through learning, through all of that stuff. And hopefully being able to share it and bring people up and along. So, before you throw somebody in prison, the group should try to wrap their arms around the individual. If they do something, obviously, I'm not saying if you murder somebody or something crazy, but the idea is we're going to help guide you back on the road again. We're going to reason with you a little bit and see if we can get you back, right? So you said it earlier, you used the word course correction. I mean, I think all of us are course correcting every single day, because you learn by your history, right? But yeah, we have to cohabitate. We don't have a choice unless you want to go live on top of a mountain somewhere. and just, isolate yourself from society, live off the grid, I guess. But yeah, and that's a choice. That's a choice too.
And maybe that's where evil is where you don't care about others and take the consensus from others, and you basically just kind of force what you think is right, without taking others opinion. And that's like, so we know killing is bad, and for whatever reason you should not kill people, and that's why we are not going to create a culture of killing people. And I think this is what separates the evil from good. Is we want to do good, we talk to people, we take actually the consensus, and take the thoughts of our peers to expand our mind. We might not accept everyone's opinion, we might not accept everyone's guidance, but we do it with the idea of expanding, and trying to think of how we can grow and how we can contribute and not be dictators.
Yeah, good
Well,
point,
in
Andrew.
closing, I put this down earlier. Self-awareness, yeah, it takes self-awareness to see the future, like the future of the self beyond itself. It takes
Yeah.
some yeah, like there has to be a relation. Is there a relationship, rather than me saying there has to be, like I figured it out already. Let me lead the example of this podcast, right? And ask the question, uh, could there be, or is there, you know, a relationship between self-awareness and seeing a future self beyond current self, right? And
Well,
I'm gonna go farther to say that if there is, well, yeah, what are your thoughts before I go any further? Actually, I'd like to.
no, I think you're on to something there. If you have self-awareness and you're aware that your self-awareness can affect your future self, then yes, I mean, I know that if certain decisions I make, I'm being aware of myself, aware of the decisions I'm making. Now I'm aware that, oh, by the way, Paul, those decisions you're making and your behaviors are dictating what your future self might be. Now, you may not know exactly what that future self is yet, but just be aware now that what you're doing now can affect that. You can't
It's just
predict the future. I
the
mean,
the
I
thing
guess you
is
can,
though,
but uh, I I would say it's back to Mike. All the decisions we make do affect who we are going to be in the future. But if you have self-awareness, you're taking the time to step back and go, you know what? That was an idiot. That was a foolish thing to do. I'm aware of it. It's back to the emperor's not wearing clothes, you know. Um, no fucking self-awareness, right? Absence of self-awareness. But everybody else is leaning back going, is anybody going to tell him? No, I don't want to tell him. I don't want to die. But at the end of the day, yeah, it does have a relation to it. And I also would like to add, everything is relational. To think that nothing is relational, I feel, is an ignorant statement. Everything we do, everything that we experience is relational to our existence. Now, I know that that's like sweeping it all under the rug and saying, okay, there you go, it's done, put a bow on it.
well, here's something
If we
practical
like
to
to
that.
break everything down, you know what I'm saying?
I don't think, to your point, practicality, things are relational. So it, am I don't, as an individual, I'm a self-awareness is not coming from me, it's coming through the interaction of me and another.
That's right.
It's relational. There's a relationship. Our relationships. So, like, I wrote this down: planning forces self-awareness. Group cohesion comes before planning. Humility comes before group cohesion. values come before humility, or value, the pursuit of value. Now, this is an imperfect, this is the rough draft of trying to get somewhere practical from this conversation, and that's the point, like, right? I'm throwing out a rough draft.
Mhm.
As the co-creator of that from this conversation, what do I value? My thought as an end in itself, or a means to an end? I value the pursuit of the truth more than my truth. So I need your guys' help and our listeners to edit this interpretation of this podcast, which was self-awareness has a relationship with future self, like actual adaptation to reality. But self-awareness has planning comes before that, or it's how we get to it's more than just me, it's others, and it's thinking, it's taking time. There are forces that impact self-awareness outside of myself. Is that planning? Okay, well, what is planning? Is that something I can do by myself? Well, maybe to a degree, but you know, that just brings me back to the self aware. Can a self be aware without others? And at what level? Well, maybe let's say it can't. Well, then, okay, you need a group to plan. Well, what's the cohesion? Are the people that listen to this show confident enough in our ability to take time to listen to what they have to say and read the comments? Or do they assume that we'll delete them? And like, do you
You're
guys feel
getting into,
comfortable enough with me in our
yeah.
relationship? And do I feel comfortable enough in my relationship with you guys to be vulnerable, meaning to share what I think unabashedly? And so there's this group, and it takes humility, and humility is value, and value is values. But it's like, anyway, that's as far as I'm at with the whole thing. And that's maybe we could explore this. We always do this, and then next time we'll talk about something else. But
I know, I think
I'm
I
done.
love,
I'm
I think
tired.
I'm sorry. I was going to say the feedback loop is important. You need the feedback loop. And so it's people. So um, I would say at the end of the day, um, you need to humble yourself enough to realize, to come to a place where you can say, hey, look, I might be wrong. This is what I think, but I'm open to others' thoughts on this. And that's a good place to start, because we don't have all the answers. We're exploring. And as we explore, things are revealed to us. And that's really an important thing. It's such a great thing. One of your podcasts, you said, I've been doing this and I'm doing it more. And I'm going, am I getting smarter or am I getting dumber? And it was kind of funny because I kind of laughed at that. I thought, I questioned that myself. Like when you do your first take and you go, hey, we did Carpe Diem. Ooh, that was good. Let's let it rip. And then you go back and you revisit it and you start to dig deeper, and then you start to reveal things and you go, well, maybe I wasn't 100%. Maybe my thinking's a little different now because I have a different perspective, or somebody enlightened me to think about it differently. So I do believe in the feedback loop. I think others do matter. Other people's opinions do matter to a degree. You should, you listen and you take and you try to learn from what they have to say. Now, it is also your prerogative to go, I don't like that opinion. That doesn't, I don't think that applies. Now what are you doing? You're starting to judge, and you don't want to hear the bad stuff. What did you just say? Delete the bad comments? I think we learn from the bad comments too. Provided they're legitimately real comments, or are they just, on social media, it's tough because that could be an internet troll for all you know, who's just trying to gaslight, and start you up.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Like the man of knowledge has to be able to love his enemies and hate his friends, Nietzsche.
Yeah, it's a great line.
That troll's destiny may have just been to be born just for my benefit.
You
Let's
know,
not let the coat of resentment on their blade nullify the the observation.
your
Love the way you put
It's
words
fun.
together, buddy.
Anyway,
your haters will tell you things that your friends won't. Duran.
if you're listening to this episode, I'm sorry. Uh, please go take a look at Life Lesson. Just type that in the Culture Matters podcast, Life Lesson, Labels Limit, Mom. We're at Carpe Diem. Next is the Laws of Man, if I remember correctly. We're going to keep hitting you as often as we can do this. Thanks for coming on, my friends. And we please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. Share this with a friend that you believe is um, uncomfortably unaware. And we will see you next time. The Culture Matters podcast.